About income rider, this is another big topic. Um, I really enjoy these products. Back in the day when they first came out, I thought they were a little gimmicky, and I thought, well, gosh, shouldn't you just do a SPIA? That's going to be your best guaranteed income. But these products have evolved so much over the last several years, where even if you take the income rider immediately, quite often it ends up being the same payout or maybe a little better than a SPIA. But on the SPIA, you can do a life with installment refund or life with cash refund to make sure that at least the deposit comes back to the family. The beauty of an income rider annuity is that the amount you've not taken out is still being credited interest. So over time, there's a much better chance to leave money to heirs. So mom and dad could have the same income as a SPIA, but know that if they both pass away maybe 10, 15 years down the road, there very well could be some cash on hand to leave the kids as a named beneficiary outside of probate. So to me, that's an incredible bonus if you can get a very similar income, which you can. Now, what I found on the income rider annuities is there are so many moving parts. To me, it seems like, smokescreen where marketing people at the home offices will say, hey, look at us, we've got the big bonus, or look at our roll up percentage, or look at our payout factors. Now, the way those work are, okay, you have your deposit amount plus the bonus, if there is one. Then you have the roll up every year in an income account value that's not their actual real value. It's just a matter of coming up with the eventual income. So you have the income account value, and then when they turn on their income, there's a factor. Typically speaking, you'll see the higher the roll up, the lower the payout factor. The higher the payout factor, the lower the roll up. So that's why I say when I get marketing pieces that stress one or the other, I like to look at the whole picture and see what the actual payout is. And one of the things here at Penny that we have is a tool which will get rid of all the clutter and show you the actual payouts on a comparison. And actually, I'll hit those on the next slide. Some of the considerations about income rider annuities are, do I want it right away? Do I want it later? Some products are going to be better for initial income. Some will be better for down the road. The more upfront or more in the back is actually not the same as what I just said. The more upfront is some of them will give you a higher payout upfront, knowing that some people will want, they'll say, hey, I'm 70 for the next 10 years. I'm going to be traveling the world. I want as much income, but after 80, I'm going to be sitting on the front porch sipping lemonade. So I don't need as much income. So there are some that are more upfront and some that are less upfront, but are indexed on the back end for inflation. Now, I mentioned the residual account value. When we do these income rider comparisons, what I first look at is the actual payout. But we don't stop there, because your client probably does care about heirs. Unless they don't have any, then that's not the concern. But once we take a look at who has the best payouts on a comparative ledger, then we get illustrations from each of the carriers and see who has the best value left for the clients. Before we head into that, those on the call who may have AUM, a sales idea that I just love, that, historically speaking, the guidance when somebody retired would be you could safely withdraw 4% per year. And over time, that 4% per year withdrawal should be safe. Now, over the last 5 to 10 years, that's dropped down to 3.5 or 3, depending on which guru tells you what. But as we pull onto this next slide, we'll see that if a person, for instance, had $1 million and they took a $500,000, and when they took that $500,000, they could get an income. And I'm going to make this a little bigger for myself. My eyes are getting not as good in my old age here. But you'll see that our numbers are obviously north of that 3.5%. So the person could take that million, take half of it into here, have what would have been 3.5% of that million, and still have their $500,000 that the advisor could take and invest in growth equities to get back to their original sum. So 10 years down the road, they can turn around and give them a big pay raise. Obviously, in a big inflationary environment, that is, I think that's a win-win for everybody. But using this comparison, I'm going to run through this a little bit. You'll see these first two, they have a really high initial payout. Well, that's what I mentioned about the upfront. So up at the top is American General, Corebridge. By the way, spoiler, they're one of my favorites in this arena, and actually in many of the arenas. Um, they have a really good track record with their crediting. You'll notice that it's a high amount, and on the guaranteed side, again, these are the guarantees, not the current. Uh, the actual principal would run out there here in year 11. Oop, I went ahead. Now on the current side, obviously, it's going to credit, and it'll be a few years past that. Um, and they'll take the lower payout once the principal is used up. So it could be that, okay, we're 67, that's normal retirement age, that's how I ran this. In worst case, 11 years, we drop down 78, probably going to be, and we'll run the illustration if this were a client and see what it looks like on the current side, but that'll probably be about 14 years out. Now, as ones that don't diminish, you'll see several here in a row, and they're all pretty darn similar, no matter how many ups and downs we have on all of the various roll-ups, etc. So I'll highlight, you'll see on some of these that National Life Group is up there, Athene is up there, Global Atlantic's up there, Corebridge, AIG. And one of the reasons, again, that I go for them is the history they have. There are a lot of really cool new innovative products by some of the smaller companies, which I love, innovation. But without having a track record to run on their crediting, again, if crediting is an issue, if you're looking purely guaranteed income, the crediting doesn't matter. If you don't have heirs, leave it to. But if heirs is leaving it to, I stick with one of those big dogs, National Life Group. Let me go into the next one here. That's where you see them come in here on the single. But this is the same person, or 67-year-old if he wasn't married. So single versus joint, same type of thing. So I won't belabor that. Now I mentioned about delayed. You'll see that again, American General's at the top if you want the upfront. So again, for your folks that really want more disposable cash, I say go Corebridge because that's going to give them the most money in their active lifetime. And then the reason I'm going through this is you'll find that a penny, even though we're talking about some products, we're a lot less about trying to push a product than we are finding a solution. We're what I call carrier agnostic. And you'll find in most of our marketing that it's not all about one thing. It's about you tell me about your client, we'll find the best solution. In fact, I probably should have led with this. The very first question when you're talking to a client about an annuity, rather than going in saying, hey, you really should get income or you really should get growth, the question I recommend everybody ask their client is, what do you want your money to do for you? Unfortunately, a lot of folks and salespeople, we tend to want to push and sell something, but we don't listen. Crazy idea, but if you ask people questions, they'll tell you the answer. And if you give them what they want, they'll buy. Imagine that. So I would start off with, what do you want this annuity to do for you? And if it's, well, I just want to make sure I have good retirement income, boom, I go to income. I care about accumulation, great, we go there. They may not know what they want. Well, that's going to take some good prodding as well. So again, on the delayed, you'll notice that there are quite a different number of companies that show up here. There's a reason why I'm showing you this tool as well, not because I'm going to give us a test drive later about how some of this works. It's a tool that you actually, the rider quote is not standard for folks that can get in there, but we actually, for folks that do at least $1 million of premium with us in annuity, which if you're an annuity producer, that's not a ton to make a living on. Then you can do this at your fingertips. But everybody can email us and we can run these for you. So that way you know you're showing your client the best. So favorite income. It's a new name showing up on there, Symmetra. You might have seen them on that last one. They are one that has had fantastic renewal rates. All 6 of these have shown great renewal rates. Again, if your person doesn't care about what they leave for their kids, they might have kids, that's fine. Um, it doesn't matter. But for folks that have a history of continuing to go, uh, you'll see some that you don't always hear mentioned. Everybody talks about Athene, everybody talks about Global Atlantic. Some should be talking about Corebridge, not as many do. That's AIG. North American, they're actually an employee-owned company. They are a company that, when I talk about carriers being bought and sold, and I look circumspectly about that, they're employee-owned, and that would be crazy miracle for somebody to be able to have a hostile takeover. That's safe business. And National Life Group, they're a mutual carrier, so their policyholders are going to be the owners. So again, uh, I would say sticking in this group. And again, there are many other carriers, and some of the names you may recognize that aren't on here. I'm not saying they're not good companies, but in all my years of doing this, uh, I always think it's best to be able to every year come back and have a good review with your client. Um, I'll even, on when we get an accumulation and talk about renewals,